The Teaching by the Child, Inconceivable Radiance. Homage to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was residing in Shravasti, in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindada's Park, together with a great Sangha of 1,250 bhikshus and a full 500 additional bodhisattvas. While the Bhagavan was residing in the town of Shravasti, its king and his senior ministers, the Brahmins, householders, and people from the greater township, along with their families, paid respect, offered reverence and veneration, and presented offerings to the Bhagavan, so that he received much fine food, drink, and other items to be eaten and sipped. He was a blessed, thus gone, worthy, perfect Buddha, one with perfect knowledge and conduct, a well-gone one, a knower of the world, a charioteer who tamed beings, an unexcelled being, and a teacher of gods and humans. The blessed Buddha was renowned for his outstanding caste, outstanding clan, outstanding patrilineage, outstanding discipline, outstanding absorption, outstanding insight, outstanding liberation, and outstanding wisdom vision of liberation. The Bhagavan's fame and renown was thus widespread throughout the world. The well-gone one, the knower of the world, the charioteer who tames beings, the unexcelled being, the teacher of gods and humans, the blessed Buddha, was also teaching the Dharma. That is, he was genuinely and fully teaching the sanctified conduct, what is virtuous at first, in the interim, and in the end, what has excellent meaning and excellent words, and what is unadulterated, perfect, pure, and cleansed. He was also in possession of the 5 eyes, namely, the eye of flesh, the divine eye, the eye of Dharma, the eye of insight, and the eye of a Buddha. The Bhagavan had soundly defeated non-Buddhist schools such as the Charakas, the Parivrajaka's, and the followers of the Nirgrantha Janatiputra. Gods and humans wholly adopted the Bhagavan's teachings, and so they spread everywhere. Early one morning, the Bhagavan dressed in his Dharma robes and skirt, and took up his alms bowl. The assembly of bhikshus, the Sangha of bhikshus, along with the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, surrounded him and accompanied him. He was beautiful to behold from the front, from the right and the left. His strides were beautiful. Wearing the Dharma robes, the outer robe, the upper robe, and the inner robe, and the strainer and the alms bowl, he was beautiful. His complexion was golden, and he radiated an aura of light a full arm span around him. It was like a mass of fire amidst the darkness of night, like the full moon on the 15th lunar day, and like the shining of the sun. He possessed the 32 signs of a superior being. They went to receive alms in the town of Shravasti, and at the very moment that the Bhagavan set his foot down at the threshold of the gate, reaching the town, some magnificent, amazing, miraculous feats took place. I shall recount the incredible, great miracles that occurred when the holy being, the guide, arrived, so listen with a most faithful heart. Those who were blind were able to see. Those who were deaf were able to hear. The naked found clothing. Those with mental illness regained their faculties. All the townsfolk joined their palms in reverence, offering homage to the well-gone one. The pleasant sounds of great gongs, earthen drums, and steel drums were audible, although none were struck. Ducks, geese, herons, peacocks, parrots, and cuckoos voiced their delightful songs. Those who had lost their fortunes recovered them. Vessels made of gold and silver rang out, although none were struck. The earth itself rumbled and shook 6 times, and no beings were left without refuge, as their minds were filled with sincere trust. Wherever strode the feet of the most eloquent and holy Buddha, there appeared immaculate lotuses in elegant arrangements. Those beings born in the animal realm who saw him found happiness and would be reborn in the higher realms. Those women who were pregnant gave birth, without the slightest discomfort, to fine-featured, attractive babies. No beings harmed one another out of attachment, aversion, or indifference. They spoke to one another in the most non-aggressive manner, the way a father or mother would speak to an only child. The sides of the road became beautifully decorated. All the gods dwelling in the heavens above copiously tossed flower petals. There were no beings left who underwent suffering. Beings who had been ill became free from illness, and so felt happy. As the well-gone one passed by, each person wondered, "Is the Tathagata looking at me alone?" They each thought, "I shall make my own offering of alms, and so reap the exact result of offering alms to the guide of humans." It was not at all easy to fathom what occurred just from him passing by. Then the Bhagavan went out to receive alms, making his rounds through the town of Shravasti. The Bhagavan reached a place near the center of town where a fine-figured, lovely, and attractive child had been left all alone inside a deserted dwelling. The child was sitting there, sucking on his right thumb. A number of dogs or jackals had gathered inside the empty house and were approaching the child and licking him. However, due to his past virtues, these animals caused no harm to the young child. Some of the townsfolk were also going in and out of the deserted building. Seeing the townsfolk coming and going, the Bhagavan knowingly directed Venerable Ananda, "Ananda, go and see what is inside that deserted house, the one all those townsfolk are entering and leaving." As he had been commanded by the Bhagavan, Venerable Ananda went to the deserted house, and upon arriving saw a fine-figured child, beautiful and lovely to behold, sitting there sucking on his right thumb and staring openly at the crowd of people around him. After seeing this, Venerable Ananda returned to the Bhagavan and reported, "Bhagavan, inside that deserted house is an abandoned child whose body is well-formed, beautiful and attractive, like a precious jewel. He sits there gazing with wide eyes at all the people gathered around him." The Bhagavan thought, "Aha, this child, through his outstanding training in previous lives, has the ability to understand the meaning of my teachings, and so is most fortunate." Out of affection for that child, and in order to lead the common folk to virtue, he went to the deserted dwelling. When the Bhagavan reached the dwelling, he entered and took a seat to the side of the child, and then addressed the following verse to him. "Frequented by snakes and yakshas, this charnel ground is most frightening. How could a child not be frightened here? And yet, here you are now, all alone." Through the power of the Buddha, and as a result of his own prior roots of virtue, the child then responded to the Bhagavan with these verses. "Mighty sage, who should feel fear toward phenomena that have no self-identity? Omniscient one, supreme speaker, whatever the action through which I came to be here, there is no self, nor something done by a self. For the self does not belong to anything at all. I see no self belonging to someone, nor do I see someone belonging to a self." The Bhagavan replied, Evil actions performed in the past have ripened in this way. Abandoned in this deserted house, surely you are experiencing feelings of suffering. The child asked, Gautama, do you still perceive that there is a deserted house? Didn't you fully understand perception while on the seat of awakening? The Bhagavan answered, I fully understand perception, and I myself have no perceptions. Rather, it is out of love for you that I have come to this deserted house. The child asked, when, no matter how hard you look, sentient beings are never to be found, where does compassion arise? Toward whom is your love directed? The Bhagavan answered, these beings do not know emptiness, the peace of no self-identity, and so, out of love for those very beings, I engage in meritorious action. The child asked, although he has fathomed the empty and tranquil, and realized tranquil emptiness, could it be that the Tathagata still has not rid himself of error? The Bhagavan answered, having realized the peace of emptiness, the guide delivers this Dharma teaching in order to mature beings. That is the compassion of the Buddhas. The child asked, Tathagata, yet again you have not rejected your error. If there is no perception of beings, where could compassion possibly arise? The Bhagavan answered, having embraced well the awakening mind, superior people don their armor and naturally bestow blessings upon non-existent beings. The child said, since nowhere is an entity observed, all armor in fact is unreal. For phenomena that have no substance, there is no armor to be found. The Bhagavan answered, although phenomena have no substance, this Dharma taught to living creatures is the vibrant display of compassion of the Lord Protectors of the world. The child asked, as for Dharma, if words do not exist, where else could instructions be? Might you be misleading worldly beings? Or are you teaching Dharma that is not Dharma? The Bhagavan answered, I do not deceive the world, nor do I profess what is not Dharma. What I do is remove the mental disturbances of mistaken beings. The child asked, as a root of mental disturbances does not exist, they have no location, neither inside nor outside. So how can mental disturbances be purified? The Bhagavan answered, things that arise from error are born entirely of imputation, and so, to rid them of all concepts, I teach the Dharma to living beings. The child said, no matter how many imputations you seek, mind is by nature luminosity, in which mental disturbance does not occur, and which never becomes disturbed. The Bhagavan answered, it is just as you say. Mind is ever luminous, and yet provisional, proximal disturbances disturb the minds of ordinary beings. The child asked, if mental disturbances are not there to see, and are not present from their own side, how can they be provisional? That is the question. Please explain this to me. The Bhagavan answered, consider how clouds appear in the sky, but are not as they appear. The arising of mental disturbances is like that. They too appear, yet are not that way. The child said, any phenomenon unmistaken in nature simply remains that way. That is how it is. No mistaken nature can be seen in a phenomenon whose nature is unmistaken. The Bhagavan answered, it is those with childish perception who falsely conceive such things to be, and Tathagatas who appear in order to bring their minds to realization. The child asked, Considering they are not born, which perfect Buddhas could appear? The appearance of a Buddha makes no sense, where phenomena themselves have no birth. The Bhagavan answered, the appearance of a Buddha is explained as birthless birth, a conventional designation that ultimately does not exist. The child said, you still have two perceptions, one conventional and one ultimate, which contradicts the path of one vehicle that you profess, Gautama. The Bhagavan answered, I do not transgress the path. I remain without contradiction and, moreover, bring discordant beings into harmony. That is how you should understand it, child. The child asked, if those beings are not perceived, then to whom, Gautama, are you bringing harmony? When you look at the past of phenomena, to whom has affliction arisen? The Bhagavan answered, having comprehended the past, the future, and likewise what transpires right now, having realized sacred awakening, I teach the Dharma to living creatures. The child said, you proclaim yourself the perfect Buddha, and proclaim your own understanding, promoting yourself in this manner. Your pride must be truly exceptional. The Bhagavan answered, I do not laud myself, nor do I belittle others. I clearly reveal how things truly are, and so am called the Tathagata. The child said, if how things truly are is inexpressible and without a true nature, then don't speak contrary to your own understanding, using terminology for what has no words, no language. The Bhagavan answered, although all those phenomena are contrary, they still arise from the natural state of things, because I have realized how things truly are. I possess neither faults nor qualities. The child said, through the power of the Tathagata, my confidence has grown, and so I ask forgiveness of the perfect Buddha for all these answers I have requested. Then the Bhagavan drew his right hand, golden in color, from his Dharma robe, and reached out toward the child, who took hold of the finger of the Bhagavan's hand and stood up. The Bhagavan carried the child out of the empty house and set him down on the road. The people gathered there thought, this child was disturbed in just this way, and yet he was able to engage in such a debate regarding the qualities of the great being. The blessed Buddhas truly are remarkable. And as it was indeed remarkable, they offered sincere homage to the Bhagavan. The Bhagavan then spoke the following words to the child. Child, since your obscuration of karma has been exhausted, remember your previous roots of virtue, and make them known to this great crowd of people. Show them a great miraculous feat. The child then floated up from the ground to the height of about 7 persons, and from his body streamed light, which spread until it illuminated all of Shravasti and the world of Jambudvipa in its entirety. The light drew the rapt attention of Shakra, Brahma, the guardians of the world, and many hundreds of thousands of other gods, all of whom in that second, in that very moment, in that instant, went to where the Bhagavan was and bowed their heads to his feet in homage. They tossed divine flowers to the Bhagavan and proclaimed, O Bhagavan, this bodhisattva is inconceivably radiant, such that he illuminates this Buddha field with light, and so he serves the welfare of innumerable beings. That is how that child came to be named Inconceivable Radiance. The Bhagavan also said, let this child be called Inconceivable Radiance, and so he rejoiced in that name for the child. The child Inconceivable Radiance then descended from the sky and came to rest on the ground. Through the power of the Buddha and his own prior roots of virtue, what transpired next happened like this. By the time he took a seat, the child's body had grown to that of an 8-year-old child. Then the Lord of God Chakra presented the child with a bolt of heavenly fabric, saying, "Dear child, out of loving concern for me, wear this length of fabric. Don't remain naked." The child Inconceivable Radiance then spoke these words to Chakra, the Lord of Gods. "Kaushika, it is not by wearing lovely clothes that bodhisattvas are made beautiful, but rather their beauty comes from bearing the ornaments of Dharma. Kaushika, it may be obvious, but nonetheless let me tell you what the ornamental clothing of the bodhisattva mahasattvas is. The ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas is the awakening mind, for it adorns the seat of awakening. The ornaments of modesty and propriety are the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for they support all beings. Observing their commitments is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for it perfects their insight. Their intent is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for it eliminates deceit and guile. Application is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for it perfects all virtuous qualities. Superior intention is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for it sets them apart from all others. Absence of pride is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for it perfects their wisdom. Their pursuit of Dharma and longing for Dharma are the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for these perfect their insight. Their lack of parsimony as preceptors is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for it perfects their dispassionate wisdom. Their utter disregard for all wealth is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for it perfects their excellent marks and signs. Pure discipline is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for it brings their aspirations to completion. Acceptance and gentleness are the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for they become words that resound and roar like the voice of Brahma. Stable resolve and fortitude are the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for these fulfill all their goals. Their attainment of concentrations, liberations, absorptions, and equilibria are the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for these perfect the wisdom of highly advanced cognition. The insight of knowing how to parse words carefully is the ornamental clothing of the bodhisattvas, for it eliminates latent tendencies, beliefs, and manifest afflictions. Great compassion is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for they never become discouraged in samsara. Bearing no animosity toward any being is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, for they never lose interest in the welfare of self and other. Teaching Dharma without material interest is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, because insight liberates both self and other. Accomplishment of Dharma is the ornamental clothing of bodhisattvas, since it removes all mental disturbances. Kaushika, in this way, you must see how bodhisattvas who possess ornaments of Dharma like these are never naked. The Lord of God Chakra was greatly pleased with the child and trusted in him. And so, addressing the Bhagavan, he asked, "Out of loving consideration for me, would the Bhagavan please tell him to accept this length of fabric?" The Bhagavan then spoke to the child Inconceivable Radiance, saying, "Child, take this length of fabric and put it on." The child Inconceivable Radiance then went over to the Bhagavan, knelt with his right knee on the ground, pressed his palms together in salutation toward him, and then, in his presence, accepted the length of fabric, and put it on. The Bhagavan then went to receive alms in the town of Shravasti. The men and women, boys and girls, merchants and Brahmins, householders, and the king and his major officials were amazed and assembled there to look upon the child Inconceivable Radiance, to look upon the Bhagavan, and to show them honor and homage. The Bhagavan accepted the offering of alms from each in turn, and then went to the home of the mother of the child Inconceivable Radiance. When he arrived there, however, he said nothing, and simply remained off to one side. Embarrassed, the mother of the child Inconceivable Radiance did not come out to the entrance to greet the Bhagavan. The child Inconceivable Radiance went inside his home, and then spoke the following verses to his mother. "It was due to my own past misdeeds that I entered your womb, not because of any fault of yours, mother. That being so, don't feel ashamed. Since you created me with love, I am the one indebted to you. Don't be embarrassed or shy away. Come before the Tathagata. My entry into your womb was an endowment you received well. Come share with the great guide as well the virtuous deeds of your body." The child Inconceivable Radiance then spoke to the Lord of God Chakra, saying, "Kaushika, give me some heavenly Mandarava flowers, divine incense, and godly raiment. I shall give them to this mother who gave birth to me. By presenting them as a gift to the Bhagavan, she will generate the mind set on unsurpassed and perfect awakening." And so the Lord of God Chakra gave the child heavenly Mandarava flowers, divine incense, and godly raiment. The child Inconceivable Radiance then spoke the following verses to his mother. "Mother, take these heavenly Mandarava flowers, so lovely to behold and enjoyable, along with this incense and clothing, and offer them to this great man, the Buddha. Gifts made in this world to one's parents, such as food and drink, money and clothes, are not offerings at all compared with what connects them to Dharma. Therefore, make an offering of these items. Make an offering to this holiest of humans, and firmly aspire to supreme awakening. Time and again, I have been at your side, for so very long I have encouraged you. Without feeling unworthy or ashamed, but with a renewed sense of joy and delight, proceed to where the genuine victor awaits, and offer homage at the feet of this Supreme Being. Handing flowers over to the Lord, along with incense and clothing, generate the roots of virtue from that victor, and generate, too, the resolve for supreme awakening. Having set your resolve for supreme awakening, then, as is said, the Lord of the world assures full maturation to those who, with faith, pay respect to a victor. Go, petition this genuine victor." The woman then went over to the Bhagavan and offered homage by prostrating to his feet, made offerings to him, and put her request to him fully and respectfully, just as she had been instructed. After she had made this request, the Bhagavan told her, "Through this accomplishment of roots of virtue, you shall not go to the lower realms or an unfortunate state. Having pleased millions upon millions of Buddhas, you shall yourself become a Buddha, the holiest of persons." When he had finished receiving alms in the town of Shravasti, the Bhagavan, accompanied by the child Inconceivable Radiance and other lay people, left the town and returned to Jeta's Grove, Anathapindada's park. The Bhagavan then took his meal, arose from his inner absorption, and readied himself to make the Dharma heard.